Morning. Welcome to Papa's Fix-It Shop. This is Kim. And I mentioned I was going to be working on this little guy. In case you didn't see my earlier one. This little guy. See, it's got my last name, but that's not my name. That's my grandpa's name. Grandpa Condes was a machinist, and he worked at Hudson Motor Company, where at the end of his career was the block boring foreman at Hudson Motor Company. And he had told me, and my dad had told me, that when my grandpa initially went to be trained as a machinist, went to school, that they began by, like anybody that works on machinery and stuff, you can read books all day long, but until you actually lay your hands on the tools, you don't learn everything. And so they had to make stuff to pass each level. And I believe, this is speculation, but I believe this little parallel was one of his early attempts. And the reason is that there's only one, and it's not nominal size. It's like a bit under 3/4, a bit under 1 inch. And the length is it's just under 5 1/8 of an inch, which I suspect that he was working it and then realized that he does what a lot of people do when they're getting started, is they don't sneak up on a dimension and they actually go too far. And the other thing is, if you look at this, not a lot of people had like letter stamps, and I kind of think maybe it was stamped at the school so they could keep track of it, but that again is wild speculation. What's really interesting to me is that when I found this thing in his old machinist box, which is around here somewhere, everything was pretty rusted, and I use evapor rust to get the rust off. There's a lot of pitting, but I'll show you this backside because it's easier to see without the letters. If you look at these surfaces, and these were obviously machined and polished to a really nice finish, but the inside of this groove, you can see it's rough, and it seems like it was scraped with something, and I don't know if it was a shaper or what. Anyway, I got a piece of 4140, and since I am no machinist by any means, even though I have a mill and a lathe, they're like hobby stuff. I want to see if I can duplicate this exactly. So I have two of the same size parallels. I mean, they're not nominal size, but if they're both identical, I can still use them to hold stuff up off the deck or whatever. This other set that was made, and that my grandfather actually told us was his, are identical. So I've never actually really measured them closely to see how far off a nominal they are, because it doesn't matter to me. But when you look really close, you can tell that these were shop made. Probably in the same school that my grandpa went to. Now, back in those days, a lot of those places, you got a job, and the automobile factories had their own training for guys. So anyhow, I'm going to cut this off with a bandsaw, and I'm going to start seeing if I can find this guy's mate buried deep inside that piece of 4140. If anybody's interested, I got this from McMaster Car. Wasn't very expensive, and I've had it sitting around here just to do this for quite a while, but I finally got to the point where I'm gonna start working on this project. So stay tuned. So let's see. This guy, well, you can't see it on camera, I'm certain, but when you first look at it, it looks about 5 inches long, but it's actually longer than 5 inches. And short of getting measuring things out, with my calibrated eyeballs, it looks to me like this guy is probably somewhere around 50 or 60 thousandths shy of 5 1/8. So just to be on the conservative side, because I'm not good enough at this stuff to feel comfortable cutting it too short. I've seen guys that they'll say, well, I'm going to cut it off, I'm going to leave 30 thousandths or something. I'm not that good. Plus my bandsaw is made of Chinesium, and it does really good, but it's still, it'll walk a little bit one way or another. So I routinely have to machine off, 30, 40 thousandths when I get a good cut, and even worse if it deflects more. On a note, I actually switched to a bimetal bandsaw blade. I had to order it, and man, if you have one of these little bandsaws, get a bimetal blade, man. They just work way better. So I'm gonna go to about 4 1/4 or 5 1/4. So essentially, it's going to give me around 150 thousandths per end of wiggle room. Because it's kind of like my years as a fabricator. I used to tell the guys I was training, it's always easier to take more metal off than it is to put that metal back on there. So we're going to cut it off right about here. See how that comes out. Back again. So here's a piece. I'll hold it up here where you can get a look at it, I guess is the best way. Because if I measure it and then tell you, you're going to say, well, I didn't see that. So essentially, put this guy right against the end, and I feel it with my finger. Turn it over, and you can see I said I was going to leave about, I was going to cut it at 5 1/4 because this was about 5 1/8. I don't know how close it is. With a friggin' scale, you're about stuck. If I'm going to use the 16th side, wow. About like that. And I hold this, you just push it out and where it hits. You get the feel for it. What am I getting? 9/64. What's that tell you? 1730 seconds? Or 1830 seconds? Switch it back. It's 147 thousandths with that measurement. 3 thousandths shy 150, which is 1/8 of an inch. So the other thing, let me take a look at this. Where am I? See this end? That is the end, the cut end from whoever cut it to ship this particular size piece out. This is the saw cut with that bimetal saw blade. Very nice. tend to listen to NPR, and they might not like me having your commentary, so I'm turn it off. There it goes. So, step one, every time you're going to try and do anything that requires even a tiny bit of precision, you got to tram in the vise. So if you're one of those guys that's done it, seen it, sorry, but it might be somebody that needs to know it. Like maybe someday, far in the future, when I'm not around and one of my descendants decides that they want to mess around with my machine tools, maybe they'll find these videos. I think I'm going to leave some kind of like a flash drive with a bunch of them on there for the family, you know. So anyway, first thing I do when I want to tram a vise is I loosen up the bolts, and I make sure that bolts have some wiggle room in the T-slots, and I kind of put it all the way forward. And when you do that, just snug up the two bolts a little bit, and just for shits and grins, I'll find out how close it is. So to do that, you can see there's a little indicator over here, and it's little, what do they call them, lines on a scale? Having a brain fart. Anyway, it's got 0 in the middle, it's got plus or minus, so you can see, you can set the 0 and it goes up 10, 20, 30, 40, and then the other way goes 10, 20, 30, 40. So I'm going to take this guy, and it should swing to the right when I hit that vise. I'm just on the fixed jaw. This little indicator does not have a lot of travel, so you got to kind of be careful. So right now it's on 0. See if I can get this camera a little closer. Okay, this is about the best I can get a shot of this guy. See, make sure I'm touching it. Pretty sure I am. Oh yeah. Now the thing to do is I want to find out that's off. So I'm going to give it about 40 thousandths. So I got it straight at the opposite of the 0. So then the trick is you slide it across. Let me use the hand crank because it doesn't introduce a lot of vibration. So now it's dropped off 1/1000th. Oh, went back. It's at 1/1000th. That's about 1.5 thousandths. There's 2 thousandths. 3 thousandths. 4 thousandths. Well, I'm going to lose you on the end here. You have to trust me on this. It's about 6. So since it's dropped to get to 6 thousandths on the right side versus 0 on the left sides, that means that this surface is farther away from the indicator than this one. So I want to make this surface move toward the indicator. So how do I do that? And it's pretty simple. I'm going to tighten, not like super tight, but I'm going to snug down pretty good the bolt on this side right here. See, I got a wrench. And when I do that, it will have the tendency to make the vise pivot on the right side. So now I know which way I want to go. And if I wanted it to go farther away, I'd hit the vise on one side and then the other. So to do what I'm doing, I'm going to take this plastic hammer, and on the end of the vise closest to me, I'm going to just tap on it and get it to move, see if it'll move. So the idea is to get it to go 5/1000. So that went to, now it's at 4, 2, oops, went too far. There's there, now it's on pretty close to 40. So now I'm going to do is wind it back the other way. Well, I got, well, start from the oil. So, one side to go. Just a, if you look at this, yeah, I'm about a little over 1/16 of an inch away. So this one's close enough to lap and polish, and so are these sides. I still got to bring it in quite a ways. Okay, I got a lot to take off that way. Anywho, keep on going.